Hello and welcome to Real Estate Today. My name is Ed Cox and our co-host of the show is Maria Babicki. We're both real estate agents here in Simsbury and we'd like to welcome you to the show. We have a very interesting show for you tonight or today. We're going to be talking to a professional real estate photographer and we're going to discuss visually marketing your home. So Maria, could you introduce our guest and get the show started?
Yes, our guest today is Tony Healy. He is the owner of Capture Visual Marketing for Real Estate. Tony, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Could we begin by having you tell us a little about yourself?
Absolutely. Well, I'm right here in Simsbury. I live in West Simsbury for the last 9 years. Have a wife, Carol, and a daughter, Katie, 23, and a son, Brian, who's just about 20, both of them college bound right now. Been a photographer for about 20 years or so, and I'm very involved in our local Rotary Club, past president, 2011-12. Very happy about that as well, but just proud to be here in Simsbury.
Okay, so how did you get into photography?
It was a passion of mine. I can remember a good buddy of mine having all the latest technology before any of us did when I was a little kid, and always looking at the cameras that he had, always inspiring to want to get behind that and use that technology. Something drew me to it, and yet over the years as I went to college, I started to study that as a minor, and it quickly became my major. It took over my life. That and my passion for birds as well got me behind the lens more often than not. I've been doing bird photography and real estate photography now for quite a long time.
That's really interesting. Now there's something special about you because you used to be a real estate agent.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Shh, no.
So did you take photos of your homes while you were working as a real estate agent?
I did. I thought, there's something very important to being able to convey a message over to the prospective buyer. I think it lends a hand for the realtor to have something that is going to be pretty obvious, showing the layout of a room or the layout of a house, showing true perspective of a room and the potential for what that buyer can actually move into. So having it nicely lit, having the access to the internet and so forth as well, it was kind of obvious for me to be able to say I should be doing my own photos as well, which is what kind of led me into the business more so over the years. It started to truly pick up because other agents in my office started to notice what I was doing and the importance of the photos and that conveyance again of something a little bit more of a true representation of the architecture or the layout. So I quickly caught on. That was about 2007 or so.
Well, that brings me to the name of your company, Capture. Mm-hmm. And could you tell us a little bit about it?
Capture's a metamorphosis. Going back to me being a realtor, I ran a company that was called Event Photos. We did a lot of events, but as everybody knows, the digital cameras started to really become prevalent in the field. Anybody can buy one, and we started losing a lot of business to soccer moms, things along those lines, people that just felt that they could pick up a digital camera and do the same thing. So as that kind of progressed, we started finding more of a niche in real estate, and I kind of had this old name, Event Photos, going out there. Other people knew me as Tony Healy Photography, and they could find us on virtualtourct.com, and it really started to become a bit of a mess, and it came time for us to be very succinct with our name and come up with a good new name. And just this year, we passed that through the state Secretary of State with Connecticut, came up with Capture, and we find that it truly encompasses what we do.
Yeah, it's kind of neat in your logo. You have the last two letters of capture, the RE, which I'm sure.
Yeah, the RE, it's a subtle little hint because we do so much work for real estate, be it residential, which is 90% of our business, to commercial real estate, architecture, things along those lines. So it's nice that you picked up on that, because I actually designed a logo, and it makes me feel good to see that somebody's seeing that as well.
You have a great website as well, and you also you do photography, high definition video, narrated virtual tours, and 3D immersive tours.
Yes.
So that's quite a lot.
It is quite a bit, but it's all basically. I was driving in the car the other day, and it came to my mind that again, going back to the name of the company, Capture. I thought about the different products we have and the means to be able to get the images out to the public who are now looking on the internet, on tablets, on phones. They're connected everywhere, and it came to me that we capture it in photos, we capture it in video, and we capture it in immersive 3D. And the word capture really started to truly encompass what we do.
Yeah, I think that's a a special way of saying the name of your company. So this afternoon, let's focus on just the real estate photography.
Absolutely.
And you brought up an interesting statistic about over 90% of the people and photographs of homes. What was that?
The 90%, well, number one, it kind of helped to be a realtor in the past. I no longer am a realtor. But what that gave me was an understanding of just how many people are looking online these days before they even call a realtor.
Right.
The National Association of Realtors, I spent a lot of time understanding what's going on in real estate, so I read that quite often, and they are known to say, I watched it from about 10 years ago, at about 70% of people to almost 100% of people now being prospective buyers are looking online before they even call a realtor. So they're doing their searches online, they're looking at homes, and they're really finding out more and more about those homes before they even pick up the phone.
The other thing that I can say for sure with one of my clients is that before even a seller puts their home on the market, they go on the internet and they look at what their neighbors' homes look like inside. They don't have to go over and go to the open house. They can look at the photos and actually see what their competition looks like. And that sometimes helps us as real estate agents to pricing their homes realistically.
And that's a very good point. It's important for me to also understand what the realtors are looking for on both the buyer and the seller side. So I do see the same thing as well. It gives them a true understanding of what the market value is out there before being stunned, what their house is actually worth. I just went through a refi myself and was stunned a little bit.
So what you help us do is you help us show the space, the architecture of the home, and the features of the home, as opposed to the contents.
Definitely as opposed to the contents. The contents are personal. Uh-huh. We're not selling the personal items. I've had folks who have tacky carpets or just furniture that nobody else would want or something along those. We're not selling that. And I understand that a lot of sellers have very strong feelings when it comes to, these possessions. They've been in these homes for a long period of time, and it means something to them. But in reality, what we're looking to do now is give a prospective buyer an understanding of what the house looks like, not what the items inside the house look like. So we do that with the use of proper lighting techniques, wide-angle lenses, and things along those lines to be able to kind of tell a story and maybe even convey the layout of the home and the architecture of the home.
When we sat down with you to discuss today's show, you had an interesting perspective where you looked into it from 3 different angles: the agent, the seller, and the buyer. Mm-hmm. So could you elaborate on that a bit?
I can, because if you sit down and think about it right now, there are 3 sides to any home sale. You've got to have somebody who's interested in selling their home, somebody that could be looking online, as we were saying, almost 100% look online. So they're searching for a home, and then somebody that's doing the transaction and helping bring those together. It's important for me to know what each one of those folks are looking for when I handle my photography. A seller wants to show their home in the right mode, wants to be able to turn the right dollar in a short period of time. The agent's looking for that as well. The buyer wants to not be fooled, not be tricked. They want to see a true representation of the home. And they also want to be able to see it in a way where they can envision themselves in it, maybe even their furniture collection, their family, and so forth along those lines. So I think it's very important that I keep that in mind when we go out and do the photos of any particular property, is that there are 3 different parties involved in that.
The one thing also is, with your experience as being a real estate agent, if the homeowners are there when you're doing the photo shoot, that's a time that you can be talking to them and you kind of know what some of the things are you could be saying to help them.
Absolutely. Having the history of being a realtor in the past, and the number one thing in life, I think, in sales, in anything, is communication. If you have open communication with the realtor up front, you can learn a lot of different things about that particular property before you even show up. There's quite a few things that come to mind in terms of maybe items that you need to look out for, or ways that I can help the agent possibly get a point across to a seller or a buyer or something along those lines.
When you go to a property, how do you start? Like, what do you walk through the door with the agent, and then what are you looking for?
Well, it really differs, because I may be going out with an agent for the first time, but I also might be going out with somebody I've already seen 50 times. In either case, though, it's extremely important for us to both do a walkthrough, to both have the same knowledge of the property that we're going to go and now convey over to the internet. It's important for me to know what the realtor wants, what kind of information they want to portray out to the field as well. We were talking a little bit about things like items that may or may not be included with a home. Case in point, you see one of those big, beautiful wooden swing sets or something, or a playscape or something along those lines. If I go and start taking pictures of a playscape and then find out later that it's really not included in the home sale, then I've done a disservice to everyone. The seller, the buyer who thinks that it's coming with the house, the seller that now has to have that conversation about, do we keep it, do we bring it with us, do we sell it with the house, the agent that now has to say, oh boy, we forgot about that. It's very important to have that open communication, really understand that property first.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you like to keep things neutral, so a lot of staging rules would apply for this as well, but it's not exactly the same.
No, it's not the same. Quite frequently, when a home is staged for people to walk through the home. There's a subtle difference between people walking through a home and what I need to be able to do to convey that over to a prospective buyer online. Case in point, look on the table here, we've got a big thing of flowers in front of us, some ivy and so forth, but if you've ever seen a walkthrough of a home, you'll see fresh lemons, books, things along those lines, but inevitably on a counter is a big flower pot. That's really inviting when you're walking through. But if I'm taking pictures and trying to convey what a kitchen looks like, and the first thing you see dead center is this big thing of flowers, we're not selling the flowers, we're not a florist, we're trying to sell the room, and what comes along with it is the entire house, right? So I think those subtle differences in there it's important for realtors to understand that, and the seller to understand that when I go into a house, I may be moving a few things here and there, but it's only because of those reasons that I'm doing so.
How about lighting and light bulbs? Could you tell
Lighting
us
and
about
light
that?
bulbs, two different things. Are we talking about lighting that's inside the house already?
Yes, both.
Yes. Okay. One of the number one things that I ask every agent and every seller to do, and usually ahead of time, if you're working with me for the first time, what I usually do is send out a PDF that's got a list of things that you should basically give to the seller in preparation for that photo shoot. And part of it is everything from decluttering that we started talking about and things along those lines, but lighting. I find it very important that when we walk in the door that the lights are turned on. It's not to help us with the photographic process at all, because we bring our own lights in and we light the room appropriately. But what it's for is that feeling of welcome. It's a psychological thing. If you're looking at a picture of a room and the light's turned off, it doesn't feel like a welcoming kind of invitation. And I always go back to Halloween. Halloween, it's pretty evident when the kids are coming around, it's dark, and the kids start to come around, knocking on your door, trick or treat, your light is on if you've got candy. If you don't have candy and you want to keep them away from your home, you turn your light off or you leave. It's essentially the same thing. When you run out of candy and you're no longer welcoming these kids, you turn your light off. So I think it also relates to the internet and how people are looking at the images online. If they see a light within the home that's turned off, it's kind of unwelcoming. I'd rather have all the lights on just to say, hello, come on in.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Another group of homes that we have are not the perfect example. Maybe a home that's a little bit older or distressed or
Yep.
not updated. How do you feel about photos for those type of homes?
Are you kidding? I think I treat them the same way as I would a big 7,500 square foot home up on top of Avon Mountain. Either way, what we're trying to do is convey a message of what the potential is for a select buyer. Whether the buyer's looking to move into a gorgeous big luxury home, or they're looking at coming in and maybe even doing a flip or converting something. What you're trying to do is convey what that architecture is and what the bones are of that house through those photos to be able to find that prospective buyer and get them in the door and help them turn it. So for me, I'd shoot any home, and I think it's important either way you look at it.
Yeah, I think that with the HGTV, there's a lot of wannabe people who want to go out and renovate a home, and really they feel empowered by watching it on television. So they might actually be looking for a home that they could do that, where they might be able to get a value and buy a home for maybe a little less than what the market would bear if it was
And that's just
updated.
it. We don't know exactly what those buyers are looking for or who those buyers are going to be for any particular piece of property. So it's important for us to convey it regardless in a similar manner. Absolutely.
Can we go back for a minute to, you were talking about the psychology of having the lights turned on. Well, you did tell us there's psychology to photos as far as the number of photos that
It's photos that are put into a virtual tour. A virtual tour is usually a set of 10 or 12 images online. A lot of us see it going through what they call the Ken Burns effect, which is where each image just goes through its own little transition and becomes a little bit more welcoming to the viewer. But there is a true science to why we have 10 or 12, and actually where the placement is of certain rooms within the home as well. Some interesting points might be that number one, if you go past about 12 images, it tends to become pretty lengthy. On the 13th image, now if you can imagine, this comes from studies of virtual tour hosting companies that have been doing virtual tours for decades now. And the thing is that they've noticed that behind the scenes they can track how people are actually viewing the images, which images they're staying on, and what happens at each image. And they've noticed that on the 13th image, people are clicking off. What's happening on a 13th image, and why we don't go past 12, is 1 through 12, everybody's thinking positive. This is a gorgeous house. Look at that kitchen. Look at that dining room. Number 13, all of a sudden something clicks, and they go, what's wrong with this house? And we don't want them getting to that point. We want to show them great images, and we want to do what our number one mission is in handling photos for real estate, and that's getting them to the agent to come see that house. There are also a couple of other points within those virtual tours that are great to bring up as well. The 7th and the 8th image are the most looked at. So essentially what you usually see on a 7th image is the master bedroom, followed quickly by the master bathroom, which always goes hand in hand. The other important pictures to have, number 1 is the exterior front. It's going to tell people what the house looks like up front. Number 2, if you've got a great foyer, bring them in because it's welcoming again. It's like that light. Welcome on in. This is our house. It could be your home. And then the most important room. What do you think the most important room is?
I would say kitchen.
It's the kitchen. You know, we all spend so much time in the kitchen. I know that we have a dining room with beautiful furniture that gets seen on Thanksgiving and Christmas, and that's about it. We spend a lot of our breakfasts and dinners around the island in the kitchen. You have a lot of conversation with family and friends around the kitchen.
You have your parties there.
You have your parties at the kitchen. So people are looking at where they're going to sleep and where they're going to eat.
That's very interesting.
So as for photos, MLS keeps bragging when you get more and more photos. And now I think we can put 40 on.
Yes.
And I think I know the answer to this, but you would not recommend that we put 40 photos in a home. I can only say that in the past couple years is a home that you've shot for us up in Suffield, where 40 photos actually
made sense.
That one actually made sense to us.
Right.
We actually had to narrow it down to 40 on that home. It was a beautiful, but I do find that getting near the end of them, sometimes you're looking inside closets.
Exactly. You don't want to be doing that. You want to show a property in its best light, absolute best light, right? So number 1, why show a dark, dank corner of a basement just to fill up that 40? I've watched it over the last few years go from 25 to 30 to 40 and thought, oh boy, it's not that we can't capture the 40 images at any given property. It's just that are they the right images? If we go into a small home that's only got 3 bedrooms, maybe 1 living room, a kitchen, and a half bath, or 1 full bath, how do you get 40 images out of that? Do you want to show them things that might not tell them about the house, an oil tank, or again, a dark closet like you were saying? No, the idea behind creating photos for online viewing or for prospective buyers is to bring them into the property. So you want to put your best foot forward. There's a thought that comes with that too. It's, I look at some pictures sometimes of things that psychologically in my mind would remind me of work. So a small laundry room. Nobody wants to look online and think about, having to do the laundry or anything along those lines. So you have to be cognizant of that up front.
Right.
One thing about this particular property that Ed mentioned is you did the 3D on
Yes.
it, which was very cool.
Technology is quickly changing. Again, I was saying this before, we capture photos. Well, 2 years ago we started capturing video, and now we're capturing it in 3D, but we're saying immersive 3D because it truly is immersive. We send a link out to prospective buyers who go online and with a click of a mouse can literally dive into a property and see it from every direction and walk through the property, walk up the stairs, and really understand what this property is all about before they even go. And I see some really positive things about it. Number 1, is that prospective buyer truly has an understanding of the home. Number two, for the agent's sake, is if they sent a link to a prospective buyer and that person's looked at it and immersed themselves, and now they want to come see the house, the agent truly knows that they're more qualified and they're more apt to want to buy that home as well.
Well, that's very interesting, as drones are as well. With this being a half-hour show, we're really just touching the surface with this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And as our show comes to a close, Tony, what would you like viewers to come away with as far as this particular program? And
Well, the
real-
number, the biggest thing I think that we've echoed throughout this entire piece here is the fact that everybody is online and everybody can view from a cell phone, a tablet, a computer, and it doesn't matter where they are in the world. They can look at properties anywhere now. And the more intelligence that those buyers get through that online vehicle, whether it's a virtual tour, a video, photos, immersive 3D tour, or anything along those lines, the more information they have, the more educated and the better qualified they are for our agents. And I think that it's very important that they understand that we also try to truly represent what these homes look like, and that we're not in there also doing anything with Photoshop and tweaking it. It's very important that we feel the same way that the agent does in terms of portraying it in the proper manner.
I think that's all true. One thing that we didn't ask you, how big is your team?
My team last year was me. My team this year is 4.
Wow.
And we are, and that's the technology speaking right there. And we are currently looking for 2 photographers at the moment. So we hope to be 6 very soon, and there's some talk about some potential growth as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you for being on our show. We enjoy your enthusiasm, and we've both seen your work, and it's excellent.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.
I could tell you that at 50 years old, I'm doing something that I absolutely love to do. It's one of the best feelings on earth.
You know, I think that came through with both of us when we were speaking with you, and I think that's very important.
I also felt that when we were shooting the house in Suffield, the historic home up there, you look like you were in a candy store.
I get to see new properties every day, meet new people every day.
Yeah.
You can't beat it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us today on Real Estate Today. We hope to see you next time.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.